In the shadow of Worcester's ancient walls, where the city's clamour faded into the muddy ruts of Salt Lane, two old women dwelt in cottages that leaned together like conspirators. This was no ordinary street, it was a threshold, lying just beyond the city's boundary, where the rules of men and the whispers of magic intertwined. The year was 1347, a time when the Black Death loomed on England's horizon, and superstition clung to every heart like damp to stone. The women, known only as Mother Agnes and Mother Elspeth, were white witches, their names spoken in hushed tones by townsfolk who both feared and needed. Salt Lane was a treacherous path, its earth perpetually soft from the nearby river Severn's overflow. Carts laden with grain, wool, or barrels of ale often sank into the mire, their wheels gripped as if by unseen hands. For sixpence, one of the witches would emerge, her gnarled fingers tracing runes on the cartwheels while she murmured blessings over the sweating horse. With a final pat, the cart would glide free, no matter how deeply mired or how heavy its load. The townsfolk called it a miracle. The priests muttered of devilry but dared not interfere, for even they had relied on the witch's craft when their own wagons faltered. Mother Agnes was the elder, her hair a wispy crown of silver, her eyes sharp as a raven's. She carried a staff carved with symbols no one could read, and her voice was a low, melodic hum that seemed to calm even the most fractious beast. Mother Elspeth, younger by a decade but no less formidable, had a laugh like a crackling fire and a penchant for weaving charms from straw and twine. Together, they were Salt Lane's guardians, their magic as much a part of the street as the mud itself. But not all who passed through Salt Lane trusted the witch's arts. One crisp autumn morning, a wagoner named Thomas Crow steered his cart down the lane, his load of barley so light it barely creaked the axles. A burly man with a temper as quick as his whip, Thomas scoffed at tales of enchantment. "No mudd'll hold me today," he boasted to his apprentice, a wiry lad named Jem. Yet, as they passed the witch's cottages, the cart lurched and sank, its wheels swallowed by the earth. The horse strained, hooves slipping, but the cart would not budge. Mother Agnes appeared at her door, her staff tapping the ground. "Sixpence, wagoner," she called, her voice carrying a weight that made Jem shiver. Thomas, however, was not so easily swayed. "Sixpence for a bit of mummery," he sneered, leaning over his horse's back to haggle. "I'll give you a penny, and you'll be glad of it." As they bartered, Thomas's eyes fell on a single piece of straw draped across the horse's shoulders, glinting oddly in the morning light. A suspicion took root in his mind. Tales of witches binding spells in straw were common in Worcester. With a flick of his knife, he sliced the straw in two. A scream tore through the air, so raw and piercing that Jem dropped to his knees, clutching his ears. Mother Agnes staggered, her body convulsing as if struck by an invisible blade. Before Thomas's eyes, she split apart, her form collapsing into the mud in two lifeless halves. The cart jolted free, and Thomas whipped the horse into a gallop, his heart pounding as he fled down Salt Lane. Jem, clinging to the cart, glanced back and swore he saw Mother Elspeth standing in her doorway, her face a mask of grief and fury. The townsfolk whispered of the incident for weeks, some calling Thomas a hero, others a fool who had invited a curse. Mother Agnes's cottage stood empty, its door swinging in the wind, but Mother Elspeth remained, her presence now a solitary, ominous force. Years passed, and Mother Elspeth's reputation grew darker. The townsfolk still sought her aid, but they approached with greater caution. for her laughter had vanished, replaced by a silence that seemed to hum with unspoken power. It was in the spring of 1351, when the Black Death had already claimed half of Worcester's souls, that Mother Elspeth's most infamous deed came to pass. A troop of soldiers, led by a captain named Sir Rowland of Vaux, marched into Worcester to collect taxes for the king. Clad in chainmail and arrogance, they rode down the Tything, the main road now known as the A38, demanding coin from a city ravaged by plague. The townsfolk, gaunt and desperate, had little to give. When Sir Rowland's men began seizing livestock and breaking into homes, a murmur spread. Mother Elspeth would not stand for this. She appeared at the edge of the Tything, her cloak billowing like a storm cloud. The soldiers laughed, dismissing her as a frail old woman, but Sir Rowland, a man who had seen strange things in his campaigns, felt a chill. "Stand aside, hag," he barked. But Elspeth raised her hand, her fingers tracing shapes in the air. A wind rose, sharp and unnatural, and the soldiers froze mid-step, their bodies hardening into stone. Sir Rowland's horse reared, its form petrifying in mid-air, while the captain himself became a statue, his sword half-drawn, his face locked in a snarl. The petrified figures stood along the Tything for decades, a grim monument to Elspeth's wrath. Children dared each other to touch the stones, whispering that they felt warm, as if life still pulsed within. In 1375, a wealthy merchant named Godwin, driven by curiosity and greed, decided to break the spell, believing the soldiers' weapons and armor could be reclaimed. Armed with a blessed hammer from the cathedral, he struck the statue of Sir Rowland's horse. The stone cracked, and for a moment the air shimmered. Then, with a thunderous crack, the statue transformed into a towering warhorse, its eyes blazing with fury. It reared above Godwin, hooves pawing the air, and the merchant fled, abandoning his hammer and his ambitions. He never returned to Worcester, and the statues remained untouched thereafter. Mother Elspeth vanished not long after, her cottage left as empty as an. Some said she had fled to the forests, joining the wild folk who worshipped older gods. Others claimed she had woven herself into the earth of Salt Lane, her magic lingering in the mud that still trapped unwary carts. The petrified soldiers crumbled over time, their fragments carted away or buried, but the tale of the witches endured, passed down through generations. In modern Worcester, Salt Lane is gone, its path swallowed by the city's growth, but locals still speak of strange happenings along the A38. Cars, they say, sometimes stall for no reason, and a few swear they've seen an old woman's shadow flicker in the dusk, her staff tapping the ground. Whether Mother Elspeth's magic lingers or the stories are merely echoes of a superstitious past, one thing is certain. Salt Lane, in its time, was a place where the ordinary met the uncanny, and two old women held sway over both. Many thanks for treading this tale's dark path. If its chill gripped you, follow, subscribe, and comment below.